Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Krista Eaton, and I'm going to be teaching you today how to paint a festive Christmas tree. So I'm going to be using oil paint, and I'm doing it on this little 6x6. It's a Centurion Universal Primed Linen Painting Panel, and I really like them because they've got a nice combination of smoothness, but not overly smooth because of the linen texture. So I went on to Pixabay, royalty-free, lots of royalty-free images there, and I found this fir tree with snow, and I thought that'll be a good base for our painting. And then I also found some more of these types, so I have something to like this. So I have something kind of to help me with how I can turn, a photo like this into something really fun and Christmassy. So I'll be going between those two reference photos today. So I've got out my oil paint, and in front of me it's on my glass palette, and I've got black, white, sap green, yellow ochre, orange, quinacridone red, alizarin crimson, cadmium red light, or cadmium red medium, viridian green, some ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, transparent red oxide, and brown oxide. And then, of course, I've got out my little tin with my odorless mineral spirits. That's out of the way. And I'm using today for this a number 4 flat. And I've got a number 8 flat. And I've got a 6 flat. Maybe for the little ornaments, I'll use something like this little number 2, kind of small. You could use a you want to. And I just choose the flats because I like that I can use the edges as well as the sides to make all kinds of shapes. So I'm going to just start off with some of this brown oxide and a little bit of this ultramarine blue. And I want to just kind of get a bit of a gray kind of color going on the canvas just to tone this panel so that I can get rid of that white. And so I'm just using a little bit of the terp and a little bit of paint, and I'm getting a thin layer on there. And I'll put links for these panels below because they're really good quality and they're not too expensive. And so when you're starting out painting, it's sometimes you think, well, I don't want to spend too much on the surfaces because I might not like what I paint, or I feel there's too much pressure then. So these are kind of a good in between. And you really don't want to use those ones that you can buy at the dollar store or Walmart unless you're going to put a few layers of gesso. And I get this gesso from Michael's, and it's really good because you can just squirt it out, give your surface a coating of it, and kind of there you go. You've got now less absorption. But when you buy those little ones from the dollar store, or even the cheap ones from some of these places like Michael's, whatever, you give yourself kind of a disadvantage because even I have trouble painting on them. For all my years of painting, I find it hard to come up with something decent when I use those cheap panels. So that's just a little kind of sidebar there. So I'm just sketching the snow in the background with this little tree here. So I'm just drawing on the horizon line, and I think I'll make it a little lower, just using a little ultramarine blue and a little bit of the brown oxide, just more of the same for the background. And I'll just kind of come down a little. I want it to show off the tree more, so. Okay, so just kind of sketching in that tree. And you could do these on even smaller canvases and give them away at Christmas as little presents or make little Christmas ornaments out of them. Okay, so I want to first of all just kind of block in that tree. So I'll use some of this sap green, and you can dull it down either with a tiny hint of that alizarin, or you can take a little of that transparent red oxide color to dull it down. I'm just going to start off with that, and I want to just start by marking off the little top part of the tree, and then I'm going to just dab in some of the green to start. And I'm looking at the tree, it kind of goes in and comes out, and I'm using this number 6 flat to do this, and I'm just blocking in the basic shape first. And in this step, you don't want to add too much of that terp to your paint, because you still got to add the snow to these branches. And if you have too much of that terp on there, you're going to just have a real problem with the paint being too slippery. So if you do have a problem with it, just let it kind of tack up a little and come back at it later. And I'm kind of getting into the detail a little too much. So just to start, I'm going to block that tree in. Now I can say, do I want it a little bigger or, but I think that's probably a good size. You could put the little baby tree next to it there. That's kind of cute. And on the horizon, there's a few little trees. You could just put one more. That way you got a nice little pattern, nice little composition of 3 kind of. And for this size of board, I don't think I'd want to do any more than that. Okay, so now I'm going to, so in my reference photo, it's very pretty and basic with the kind of overcast sky. I kind of want to make it look a little more fun. So I'm going to get a larger brush, and this is maybe a little big, but it's okay. And I'm going to put in a little bit of what I see in these Christmassy pictures is a dark kind of moonlit sky with the snow showing. So I'm just going to go with that kind of imaginary scene just for this. You can do a more serious snow painting too if you want, but I'm going to make it a little bit more fun. So I'm going to get I just got some ultramarine blue out here, and I'm going to start off, and I have some cobalt in there just to thicken it a little, and I'm just going to put down some of that real blue sky. And block that in. You want to get this in before you start adding snow to your canvas and trees and whatnot, or snow on the trees rather, because you want it to stay nice and blue. If you start adding the snow, you end up with a lot of white mingling into your paint, and I always try to plan out how I approach each painting to save myself a lot of extra work, or going backwards. I really don't want to have to go backwards when I'm painting. I only want to kind of carry on to the result that I want to get. And so I always sort of think ahead. So we're getting this nice winter sky, festive winter sky, I should say. And I'm just going to block in some more. And I normally put out a lot more paint, so this should be enough, but normally I put more paint out. So today I had to kind of scramble for a lack of time. So here I am. I have this pretty winter sky painted in now. And while I'm working in some of the color, I'll go back to my reference photo, and I want to pay attention to putting, even though this is kind of imaginary, I'll think of a little bit of the shadow in there before I start applying snow. So I'm going to work on sort of a nice kind of purpley, bluey shadow color. So I'm going to use a little of that cad red medium and a little bit of white, and I'll come up with something kind of nice for a shadow color. So you can see it's making a nice kind of grayish color. So I'm going to go in and get that in there right now. And get some of that in there around this tree. Okay, so now that you've got that in there, you can start painting in some of the snow to see. I'm going to get a little more green paint, and I'm not using any turp. I'm just going to get some of that, a little more of that sap green, and I took a little bit of that red oxide I want to get a little more paint on there, especially kind of on this more, I'm going to call this our shadow side here. This will be the light, and just kind of work some more paint on there. And for the sky, it's all one kind of shade of blue. So maybe before I get into the snow, I'm going to lighten a little bit of it down here. And how I'm going to do that is I can take my paper towel that I've got here and just kind of lift off a little bit of paint down there. I'm just going to use my paper towel for that effect. And if you can see that, you're getting a little of an atmospheric look to it just by lifting some of that paint. Let me see if I can, like that. So just when your paper towel gets too mucky, you can just go and lift a bit more off, fold it over to a clean spot, and continue lifting off. So you're getting that real pretty effect of the light kind of, I would say, kind of reflecting from the snow. And so I'm happy with that result. So if you're using a canvas, you may find it's a little bit harder to lift off the paint. So just use a little bit more of your odorless mineral spirits when you go to lift it off, and it'll come up. Okay, so now I think I'm ready to start adding some white paint for the snow. So I'm going to move down a notch to my number 4 flat, and I'm going to get some white. And I'm going to start off with a little bit of this white, and I'm grabbing a little bit of that purple that I mixed up, and I'm going to add a little bit more of this blue. So I've got a nice kind of lavender color. And let's go back to my reference, and I'm going to kind of put that in between, work that in around the trees. I always save the real bright whites for the last. So I just work that around. And then if you want to soften your shadow line, just wipe your brush a little and just kind of lightly mix that in. Okay. And now I'm going to go in with some real bright white snow. And I add a tiny, tiny hint of orange to that. And it's like barely any, just to get a real bright white going. And we're just going to bring that down. Like that. A little bit more orange in there. And this is a really fun and simple painting that you could do. Even if you wanted to with your grandkids or something. This is something they could even probably handle. But it's really fun to try some of these little things, and you can add more to them later. You could add some extra things to the picture. Just let your imagination go. Okay. And I'm just going to put a few highlights on the edge there. Just gives it that snowy feel. All right. Now for the tree. So I might just, I don't want to overdo it with the snow all at once, so I might just go down to a number 2 flat. And I want to get a little bit, I'm going to start off by adding this kind of light lavendery color in the shadows here. Isn't that pretty? And I'm looking at my reference photo. If you get a little too much green, just make sure you go back in. Mix up a little more of that. Even some cobalt blue and white will kind of give you that effect of it's light, but it's not going to be as bright as the white on this side. We're going to make this the real bright highlight snow. Just get a little cobalt blue, a little touch of that purpley color, and just go back in and just kind of dab some of that in and wipe your brush in between. And just kind of looking at my reference photo and kind of dabbing some of those little designs I see in the, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of getting the effect. One of my favorite things to paint is trees. And just keep kind of working your way around. Okay. And now for these, I'm going to get some more of that real, that bright white color, which is white with just a tiny hint of that orange. And I'm just going to put some real brighter snow branches over on this side. And we'll do this little tree here. I think I gotta add more of that dark green on the side here. So you can see it. If you get enough paint on there, you won't be able to see the snow. And I'll get a little bit of that cobalt and a little bit of that cad red. And a little more white. And get a little bit of that paint going in the shadows there. So it's looking kind of fun. Add a few little details up in here. And in the distance, I'll make that a more bluey tree, sort of, just so you can see the snow, but it's not taking over. So yeah, this you can see it's starting to look really Christmassy, kind of wintry. You can put a few, don't use your bright white, but use some of this, more of this kind of lavender white color, and you can add a few snowflakes in the background. So if you wanted to, you could be done really at this. It looks good enough the way it is, but I'm going to add something. I'm going to go back to my little cartoon picture, and I'm going to add some of those Christmas balls just for fun. So I'll go get something smaller, this number 2, and I'll start by adding the quinacridone red. When you're using quinacridone red, when you add white to it, it creates a nice pink color like that. And if you use alizarin and you add white to it, you get more of a grayish color. You don't get this nice vivid color. So I think for this, I'm going to use some of that brighter quinacridone red so I get some of this kind of more vivid highlight. So I'm going to start by putting a few of those little dots in my tree, and you can put as many as you want. I'm just going to start off by using one color, then I'll add some other colors. But this will help me keep, make a nice pattern. So I'll zoom in because I don't know how well you can see those. So there, I've just used straight quinacridone. Haven't added anything else. And in between your brush strokes, just you can, make sure you wipe the green off your brush if you've got too much green mixing in. So you can just use a little white now and mix a little up with some quinacridone to get yourself a little bit of a highlight. Just kind of zoom in here and just kind of add a little bit of that on top of your dark red. But don't cover the whole thing up because then you'll miss out on giving it that little bit of three-dimensional look. And you can lighten up the ones on the sunny side or the moonlit side more. Just a little bit. That way you see a little bit of a change. And then you can pick another color that you would like to see with yours. I could get put a little yellow ochre down and have sort of a goldy color on mixed in. So just kind of find a spot to put another color in. This is a lot of fun to paint. I have to say, this is one of my favorite type of paintings. And I'm just going to add a little white to that yellow ochre and just add a little shine to some of these ones. And then leave some of them a little bit darker so that, you know, they don't take over. And then I might add sort of that turquoise color. So I'm going to use just some viridian green and put a little white. And it just kind of will add a nice kind of aqua green color. I'll throw one or two of those in. But you can pick whatever color you want. Some people are very good at decorating, so they can use all kinds of colors like purple, and I always just stick to red and green. But when you're painting, you can kind of be more imaginative. So I'll put them around, and then I'm going to add that lighter mix of viridian and white and just go in and put a little highlight on some. So now that you've got all that done and you've got I just got this little brush I'm working on. I'm just going to go and get some more snow and just kind of, because now that I see where my ornaments are, I can kind of finish up the snow a bit. Just add just a little bit more detail here and there. I'm careful not to put any real bright highlights on this side of the tree to keep that, you know, that sort of effect of the light and the shadow going on our trees. And I'll leave this one in the back pretty much the way it is. I don't want it to stand out more. I want it to look further back. And you can just kind of dust over the edge a little just to give it a little more. And then you can go back and get into that, you know, mix of paint with the white and the cobalt blue and add a bit more paint that's kind of more your shadow color on the other side. A couple more snowflakes, and I think the more I play with it, the more I'll probably muck it up. So I think for now, I'm going to just leave it as it is. Soften those edges in the horizon there so it looks like it's further back. Don't have any sharp lines there. And that's about it. I'm looking forward to seeing your paintings. And I hope that you enjoyed this little lesson. And we'll see you soon.